In this video, I am going to be breaking down how you can go from zero to $1 million in your business. Now, I'm going to give you 7 lessons that I picked up along the way in my own business that helped me get from literally starting from scratch all the way past 7 figures. So the focal point that you're going to get in this video is from someone who not just sold products, but also runs a consulting business. Because what you sell is important, but who you sell to is even more important. So the first lesson that I want to give you is that there's really only 3 skills that you need to learn and master at this level of 0 to 1 mil. That's going to be sales, communication, and advertising. Now, sales is what you're going to sell to people on the front end. So this is going to be your offer. The communication aspect is how you're going to communicate, not just to your potential clients when they enroll with you. So this is going to help you on the front end with selling, but it's also going to help you on the back end when you're either consulting your clients or when you are maybe designing new products so that you're now able to convey that message back to them, let them know that they're actually being heard. Now, even though in this phase, you may not have the biggest team just yet, in reality, 0 to 1 million is really just going to be maybe you, an executive assistant, and maybe 2 salespeople, or really it could just be you selling and fulfilling on the product. Don't always recommend that. But again, 0 to 1 million, you don't necessarily have the most help. But the cool thing about developing that communication skill is that it carries on in every level past this. Now, in regards to advertising, this is how you make your product known to a marketplace. Because you can have the best product in the world, but if no one knows you exist, it doesn't matter. Now, here's a quick tip. If you're wondering, what should I do? Should I solely post on YouTube organically? Should I run ads? Should I do affiliates? Like, what type of route should I do to get me to 1 mil? Spoiler alert. Any one of those vehicles is going to get you to $1 million in revenue. Now, you want to remember this. I got this from Russell Brunson, where he says you want to pick 1 channel, 1 avatar, and 1 product, right? You're 1 funnel away, as Russell Brunson likes to say it. Now, pro tip, the next phase past this is going to be focusing on product and leadership. So in case you're future pacing yourself because you know you're going to make it past that $1 million mark, you want to start thinking, how can I start improving on my product? And how can I start hiring talents that's going to help me take this business to the next level? But that's a completely separate subject. Now, here's a gauge that you can use on whether you are going paid routes or you are going the organic route. The easiest way to get more leads is by running ads, but the safest way to get more leads is by posting organic. Now, the second lesson that I learned is amateurs make all of their money on the front end, while the pros make all of their money on the back end. Now, I was talking to a buddy of mine who at the time he was doing right around $2 million a year. And I asked him about how much of those sales actually comes from the front end, because I'm intrigued, right? That's a lot of selling that you're having to do, especially if it's maybe a lower ticket item, say $100 a month type of thing. And he says, you know what, Irv, really what we do is we try to focus on the back end. And so 70% of our income comes from our existing clients. And this absolutely blew my mind, because I'm thinking, wait a minute, 70% of $2 million, you're sitting at right around 1.5, give or take. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, how exactly does that work? He says, well, think of it like this. It's far easier to sell someone that's already satisfied with your service, knows you, likes you, trusts you, and it's far easier to tell them, hey, do you want more of our stuff? Do you want to maybe add on a different service in addition to what you already have? So think of it like this. If you have a lawn care business and you are already taking care of 10 doors, how much easier is it for you to say, hey, I'm noticing that there's pavers in your driveway and there's weeds growing out of them. I can spray that for an additional $10. Most people are going to take you up on that. I can tell you, because I took my lawn care service guy up on that, but it didn't stop there. He went to my backyard and he also said, hey man, I noticed that your tree in the back kind of blocks the view from you looking out through your window. You want me to maybe take care of some of those branches every 30 days, maybe every other month? And I said, I didn't even think of that, 100%. So he started off with 1 service, which was cutting my lawn, to spraying the weeds, to now taking care of the limbs that are maybe quote unquote inside of my shop. Something that I didn't even notice, which is super cool, because you can implement this in your own business when you're making a client aware of a situation or a problem that they didn't even know that they had, which ultimately turns into more money for you. Now, all things being equal, this is assuming you have a product or service that you're actually delivering on, that people are actually enjoying and consuming. So you just have to worry about actually delivering on your promises so that the back end naturally takes care of itself. The third lesson is brand creates a moat in a competitive market for your business. Now, Charlie Munger defines a moat as an intrinsic characteristic that gives the business a durable competitive advantage. Now, there's three key things that I've personally noticed whenever I am studying brands or whenever I'm looking at my own that I'm currently building right now. The first key is you're going to create affinity with people that you've never met before that are going to feel like they've known you their entire lives. So I want to paint this example for you. If I'm a dad, which I am, and I have maybe immigrant parents, which I do, and I played sports growing up, which I have, and I'm also into bodybuilding, and I also happen to be into business, and I also happen to believe in Jesus. Guess what naturally just happened there? Even you just watching the video, you started connecting certain points like, oh, well, I believe in God too, or I'm into bodybuilding as well. I like fitness, or man, I have kids too. I wonder how many kids he has. Wow. I've been trying to run my business with my kids. Man, it's been tough. And so now you're making all of these associations with my brand, which now allows me to connect with you, the viewer, a lot better. Simply put, this is going to allow a message that you have in a crowded market where you feel that you don't stand out, and it's going to give you that competitive edge because you're going to connect with people that view the world the same way that you do. The second thing that I noticed that brand does, it allows you to have more control over pricing. Now, even though we all know the two main components of pricing is going to be supply and demand, think of Nike. Like, when's the last time you ever saw a shoe crisis? Hey, we don't have enough shoes. So it can't be a supply issue. So it has to be a demand issue, right? If Nike, which puts out the same thing that everyone else does, which is just rubber soles on your feet, but they put that whoosh sign on it, there's all of a sudden a 5 to a 10x markup from their competition, even though they're in a commoditized market. And that's because we all find association, or at least if you like Nike, we find association with that brand. And the third piece to branding that I've noticed, it allows you to combat the pricing wars where everyone is on their way down to zero, trying to see, okay, who can charge the least amount of money for the same service, which ultimately means you're doing more work for less money. When you have an established brand, people know you, like you, and trust you, which means they're willing to pay you your price, even if it's above market value. Now, the next lesson that I picked up along the way is you want to obsess over your customers, not over your competitors. Because the reality is that when you're starting out or when you're under that $1 million mark, it all seems like everyone is in constant competition. And it seems like you can't stand out from a market filled with a ton of noise. But I like what Jeff Bezos says about this, and this is a culture that they've built inside of Amazon. Check this out. We're not competitor obsessed, we're customer obsessed. We start with what the customer needs and we work backwards. Now, I also really like this. There are many ways to center a business. You can be competitor focused, you can be product focused, you can be technology focused, you can be business model focused, and there's many more. But in my view, obsessive customer focus is by far the most protective of day one vitality. And I've been victim of this, where I'm watching every single ad our competitor would put out. I would see, okay, what type of post did they have? What ended up connecting with an audience? What ended up flopping with an audience? And that's fine, but that's not always going to tell you everything you need to know about your customer. And no one's going to be more brutally honest with you about your product, about your service, than a paying customer. So you want to flip that around. If you already have customers, which again, if you are already past $250,000, you definitely should. Or if you're just starting out, you can still implement this, but you want to get in the habit of constantly surveying your customers, your clients, seeing what's working, seeing what they like, seeing what they don't like. I can't tell you how many times I thought, hey, we're going to add this into the service. This is going to crush. And all of a sudden, no one was consuming it. Nobody wanted it. What exactly do you guys want? And they would tell us, we would add it, and boom, we just added more value to the business and to the service that we actually offered. Next up is you want to have your week scheduled ahead of time. Who are you going to call? Who are you following up with? What are your meetings like going into this next week? What are you going to be posting? What are you going to be taking off of your plate? Are you maybe going to tweak products in your service? Guess what? You want to have that in your calendar. Are you going to be creating media? Guess what? You want to have that on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, odds are it doesn't exist. And so I can tell a lot about an entrepreneur whenever I'm speaking to them and I say, hey man, let's see your calendar. Like, let's see what you have pulled up. What are you doing tomorrow? Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to be shooting content, or I don't know. I think I'm going to be, maybe I have a couple of consultation calls with some clients, or I have some sales calls. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist, or it's not enough of a priority for you to schedule your day around it. And odds are, if you're not having a lot of days scheduled with money producing activities, I can tell you, you're not making a lot of money. And so that can be hiring. Maybe you have a day where, hey, tomorrow we are going to maybe spend all day interviewing and hiring. Maybe we're going to spend all day reorganizing the way that we deliver our products, our deliverables, our service. Maybe we are going to reorganize our CRM. We're noticing that people are falling between the cracks. They're not getting a lot of touches with maybe our team. Our CS team isn't touching up with them. Maybe we have our closers or our setters. They're not making as many outbound dials as we thought. And so tomorrow I'm going to filter out through the entire system to see what the heck my team has actually been doing. Now, this is a lot easier, again, if maybe you don't have a team, because at this point you're just auditing yourself, because the next level above this is you're not just looking at your schedule, but you're also looking at your team schedule to make sure that it aligns with the mission and the vision of where the business is headed. Number 6 is having a plan in place for the money coming in. Don't just wing it. When's the last time you checked your credit score? That's important. When's the last time you checked how much you have inside of your personal checking account, how much you have inside of your business checking account? Those are numbers that you want to get familiar with. I can tell you off the bat right now, if we're talking to a client, where's your credit score? Obviously, because that's what we deal with. And so they're constantly used to me asking them that. But the other side of it is you don't just want to know what your credit score is. You also want to know what's been reporting on my credit report. The credit cards that I have, are they actually reporting my payments on time? Do I have any information that I need to update that's maybe erroneous or maybe that's missing? Again, not to get too sidetracked into the credit side, because it doesn't just have to be credit, but moving into your checking account. How much money are we setting aside to reinvest back into the business? How much money are we setting aside to reinvest back into you, the business owner? Because I can tell you from experience, the biggest bottleneck in a business, regardless of level, is going to be the person leading it. And so the business is only going to grow at the capacity of your knowledge of how you're able to not just make decisions, but also how much you know about the situation that you're currently in. So the other way that you can see it put is if maybe you're in a spot where, okay, I can now start hiring talent, which it's very limited if you're under $1 million. But if you can now start hiring talent, you also want to start seeing, okay, I'm either going to pay in competency or I'm going to pay with currency. This means that I'm going to pay somebody who can do this a heck of a lot better and faster than I can, or I'm going to pay for competency, meaning I am going to start going out. I'm going to maybe pay someone for their time so they can teach this thing to me, transfer that skill so that, again, you can raise that capacity so that your business continues to flow upwards. Because resource allocation is going to be a skill set that's going to serve you at every level, not just from 0 to $1 million. This is going to carry you past into that 1, 3 threshold, 3, 5, and so on. And lastly, probably the most important piece to all of this, for all of this to work, which is what I had to essentially put into practice in my own life, was all the information that you get, put it into practice and put it into practice quickly. This video means absolutely nothing if you just give it a thumbs up, which would be cool if you do, but I would rather you actually put one of the lessons into play right now in your business this year and see what it does for you. Test it, iterate it, make it your own. The last thing that I would want is you watch one of my videos, you watch someone else's video, you're constantly listening to podcasts. We become book junkies, podcast junkies. Look, it's okay to put the podcast down for a season. So you know what? I don't really want to listen to much right now. I just want to put my head down and work, because none of what I just gave you is going to work unless you do. So if you found value in this content, consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Again, share this with an entrepreneur that you know is going to find value in this piece today. But other than that, put this to work and I will see you in the next video.